So amazing, right? I mean, we've seen such a collapse from the 65-ish thousand when we were doing that live interview in Dubai, which was just awesome. I still remember I was the loneliest man in the room. No one really wanted to talk to me too much there. I kind of had to stand in the corner because I was the only one that was bearish. But again, price is always king. Charts are always truth versus emotion. And I think we always have to remember that whether you're a bull or a bear, price and price charts are what's going to give you the clearest signal. So we saw the break of 20,000 just this past, really this past weekend. And the key here is to understand why it broke 20,000.
Bitcoin reached its lowest price since 2020 on Saturday, when it fell as low as $17,660. Bitcoin had been in the midst of a correction in the weeks prior to the sell-off, which was sharper than any other this year. On Saturday alone, Bitcoin fell 13% from top to bottom, since its all-time high of $67,000 and has fallen 72%. The ongoing bear market has been Bitcoin's most severe since 2018. That year, Bitcoin crashed 83% as the Federal Reserve hiked interest rates 4 quarters in a row. Similar events are taking place this year. In 2022, central banks are hiking interest rates more aggressively than they did in 2018. The massive crypto meltdown is part of a larger market downturn brought on by elevated inflation, rising interest rates, war in Ukraine, COVID lockdowns, and supply chain chaos. This week, the Federal Reserve increased interest rates by 75 basis points, the largest hike since 1994. The change led to a retreat from all assets. The S&P 500 is also in a bear market and posted its worst week on record since 2020. The crypto world is reeling from the $60 billion collapse last month of 2 other major tokens, Terra Luna and Celsius. Those losses have increased doubts about the general stability of digital currency. In today's video, the chief market analyst at InTheMoneyStocks.com, Gareth Soloway, addresses the recent crashes in the cryptocurrency market, specifically the Bitcoin space, the reasons behind it, and the possible outcomes. Gareth explains why he believes the Bitcoin crash is not over yet and how the current Bitcoin price fall could trigger a sell-off. Make sure to stick around till the end of this video, where Gareth Soloway predicts the chances of the Bitcoin market bottoming out in 2022. Before we listen to Gareth, please take a second to smash the like button and consider subscribing if you are yet to do so. Thanks for watching our videos.
A lot of people saying, hey, 20,000 is the low, and by the way, they all came on once we got to like 30, they all piled on the bandwagon. But the bottom line is, when you have everyone calling for a low of 20, you have a lot of people putting stops just under 20. And it's the tendency of a market to run those stops, make people freak out, make the weak hands exit, and then you finally get a short-term bottom. And I think that's what we have here on Bitcoin. And again, I want to show you a couple things of why I think it's a bottom. So we're going to turn over to the charts here. And what you can see here is that we had this collapse from about 40,000 down to about 26 or so, 25 and 26. That move down of 14,000, it's about $14,000, was replicated perfectly with a measured move down to about 17,500. So that's a measured move. That gives you a good basis for a low. In addition, if we take a look, we know that the January or the December 2017 high, that was a major level. We have now recaptured it after just piercing it briefly. So we know that's support. And then even one more little tidbit of great technical analysis is that if you take the low from March of 2020, which is the low from COVID, which was the lowest point going back to quite a while on Bitcoin, it was around $4,000. And if you connect it to this recent low and you drag a parallel line up, you get the 2 highs from last April as well as November. So there's a confluence of technical supports right here that signal to me, at least we have a bounce here, probably to 25 to 30,000 in the cards.
Okay. How long is this bounce going to take? Or how long is it going to take to get to 25K, you think?
So I think it'll be faster. I think as we get and stay above 20,000, a lot more people are going to start to say, hey, we have a major low in Bitcoin, and you're going to see the bulls come back with a vengeance, trying to say, okay, now we're going to start heading back up to all-time highs. I think that'll propel it over the next probably 3 to 6 weeks back to 25 to 30,000, which again, from 17,000 is a low, or 17.5 percentage-wise, that's massive. Now, if you're in from 60 or 65, that doesn't seem such a good bounce. But again, in percentage terms, that's a major, major move. Now, once we get there, unfortunately, I still see more downside. I still think that we will likely head down to probably about 12,000, which is my second price target on the downside. So I think it's important to recognize that I remain a long-term bull on Bitcoin. In fact, when we broke 20,000 at 19, I announced that I started my beginning hodl position. And so ever since we were at 65,000, even though I was bearish, I was always saying, hey, listen, long-term, I think there's a huge place in the economy, in the world for Bitcoin. And I think we'll get there. We'll get to 100,000, 500, maybe $1 million. It's just you have to flush out all the weak nonsense. I think last time we talked about that Darwinian concept of only the strongest will survive. And you just have so much crap in the system, frankly, right? So the idea here is that in the near term, a bounce back to 25 or 30. The reason 25 is a key level is that is your low from the Terra Luna collapse. So that is going to be resistance. And then if you go up, there was a ton of consolidation for about a month that occurred just around 30,000, and that is going to be major resistance. So it's hard for me to imagine with the NASDAQ, even though I expect bounces there, I still think the NASDAQ's headed a lot lower, at least to the COVID highs, that the Bitcoin market would bottom just yet fully. So I still think we need to wash out more of the weak-handed Bitcoin, the cryptos, and that will finally give us later this year a big point bottom.
All right. Crypto Crazy asks, where does he see Bitcoin 2 to 3 years out from here?
Yeah, 2 to 3 years out, I think we're back to 65. So I do think there's a decent chance that we're back to 65 within 2 or 3 years. I think this next 6 months or so is going to be the hardest. Then we'll bottom out, and then you'll probably have another 6 months of sideways chop. If we look at past cycles on Bitcoin, it's usually that first year down, and then you get a sideways kind of choppy where the bulls and the bears are just battling it out for a period of time. And then finally you start to get that move up. And I'm still a believer that inflation is going to be a systemic problem, maybe not at 8 or 9%, but at 5%. And I still believe that when the economy really tumbles here, and I'm starting to see the signals of that eventually the Fed will say, okay, we have 5% or 4% inflation, but we have 10% unemployment. We now need to print again, which is going to be another positive for Bitcoin. So again, there longer term, lots of positives for Bitcoin. I don't think it's going away. I don't think it's going to zero ever, but ultimately you just have to weather the storm essentially.
Well, you're assuming that by then, if the Federal Reserve becomes accommodative again, that Bitcoin will still be correlated to macroeconomic forces and be correlated to the stock markets overall. It's possible at some point in Bitcoin's future that it will start trading independent of all other variables and basically be a diversifier asset, right? I mean, it's just possible.
And I do believe that will eventually happen. But the thesis that I have for the Fed being accommodative again is that the economy is going to get so bad that they're forced to, which may not necessarily make for a new massive bull run in stocks. Like I don't think the S&P or the NASDAQ are going to hit new all-time highs for years. I think we could be in a scenario like the NASDAQ was in 2000, where when you finally dumped out, it took about 15 years to make new all-time highs. But I think Bitcoin will get there a lot sooner because it's not an economic play, right? So if the economy is suffering, if you have this systemic kind of bear market longer period, that's bad for stocks. But Bitcoin, because the printing presses will start up again, that would be ultimately a bullish scenario for Bitcoin.
The crypto market rebounded on Monday even as sentiments remain wobbly. However, if further optimism prevails, investors fear it may lead to a further meltdown in the new age asset class. Bitcoin breached $20,000 level, whereas Ethereum held above $1,000. The major cryptos have wiped off the gains they incurred in the last 5 years. Barring the stablecoins, all of the crypto tokens were trading with gains on Monday. Dogecoin zoomed about 13%, whereas Ethereum was trading 12% up. Bitcoin, Solana, Avalanche, and Shiba Inu gained 6 to 8% each. While investors will welcome the rebound, Bitcoin still sits 70% below its all-time high hit in November. It's down 57% year-to-date. Many have suggested a market bottom could be close, but with so much economic uncertainty remaining, Bitcoin still has more downside potential, especially if Gareth Soloway is right again. What do you make of Gareth Soloway interview? Do you think Bitcoin will fall lower to $12,000 a coin? Please, let us hear your opinion in the comments section. Thanks for watching.